Hello, hello. How's it going? How's everybody doing? Okay, hi. Welcome to the patron deck review stream. This is for January. February submissions are still open, or they'll be posted on the Patreon soon. Just since this is the first month that I'm doing things a little differently, basically the way the system works is it's like a raffle. I do 25 deck lists, and patrons can like submit their deck, and if it gets chosen, then their name is like cleared from the raffle, and if you didn't get picked, your old submission can still remain there. So next month, if you resubmit the same deck, your odds of getting picked go up. So that's the way the system works now. So if you're wondering why there's like less than last month, I can't do like 100 or 50 of these anymore. It'd be too much. Yo, what up? Let me post this link in the chat real quick. If anybody wants to follow along, this lets you see all of the deck lists. And I'll use the first one here as an example. So we have Aggro and Commander works by just to us. I don't JS just us. And the way it works is they send me a deck list, it's a full deck list, and then the sideboard is cards that I'm going to recommend they add to the deck, and the maybe board are cards that I recommend cutting. Okay, we all got it? We all clear? Any questions? Is the February submission form up on Patreon? It's not up on Patreon yet. I will post that soon. Yeah, sometime probably later today. But yeah, all right. We are starting with a relatively new commander. Not that new, but somewhat new. I haven't seen it before. So, Samet, Vizier of Naktamun. First strike, vigilance, haste. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, if that creature entered the battlefield this turn, draw a card. Sweet. Awesome. Love it. It's kind of like it wants you to play haste cards, but it doesn't actually have to be haste cards, which is kind of weird. You can give things haste. So, what are we doing here, right? This is just like Gruul aggro, right? Like we're hitting players, we're drawing cards, we're dealing damage, etc., etc. Trying to aggro out the table, yeah? No, 33 lands, not 23. I mentioned before that I have beef with Moxfield. Yeah, I'm still working on that. It's gonna be like a 3-minute long short. So is that a medium? I don't know if that counts as a medium. I just haven't had the chance to make it. It might come out next week. I got some stuff going on this week. So a couple of easy changes here. Siege Gang Lieutenant I think is a bit slow for this deck because I don't know how much you want to be spending 2 mana to sack a goblin, you know? Radha, yes, it does make you extra mana, but we're not casting big X spells, you know, other than Chord of Calling and like Song. So I don't know what we're spending the mana on. Druid's Repository, same thing. Not really sure what we're spending the mana on. So here are my changes. One, you can just cut like a basic for Amonkhet Raceway. I know you don't have any other Start Your Engine cards, but ultimately this is an untapped land. It's not that bad. And then ideally, right, you start at 1, 3 turns later or whatever, you'll have max speed, and then it just becomes a haste enabler for free in the deck. Seems pretty good, right? Next, Elturel's Druid's Repository. No, Druid's Repository. Elturel Survivors. So it has Trample and Myriad, and because of the way Samet is worded, it says if a creature that entered the battlefield this turn deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, right? So with Myriad, you actually can, you know, trigger your commander, which is pretty sweet. Also, this thing, you just attack someone and it becomes like a 6/4 Trample Myriad. It's pretty scary. How do you get your deck reviewed? So you join the Patreon, and then I do a post on the Patreon, and then you submit your deck list, and it kind of goes into a raffle system, and then it gets picked for this. Gonna build a bracket 6 deck one of these. Yeah, I'll build a bracket 6 deck one of these days. So Flame Shadow Conjuring. Instead of Siege Gang Lieutenant, which is like 2 mana to sack a thing, I think Flame Shadow Conjuring kind of is a better way to spend your excess mana. It's only 1 red to have a hasty copy of something come into play, and it just works so well. Like late game, you play Flame Shadow Conjuring, you have your commander. Next turn, you top deck Loyal Apprentice. Cool. That's a hasty Loyal Apprentice. Make a copy of it. That's another hasty Loyal Apprentice. And they each make 2 Thopters. Like, it's just value. And then you get to keep the Thopters that he makes afterwards. Seems pretty good. And then Urbrass Forge. It is a bit expensive because it's really good in Standard right now. But it's perfect for a deck like this because you're making a hasty token every single turn that gets bigger. So it's always a creature that entered, so it triggers your commander, and it just scales really nicely. It's a strong card. Yo, what up, Yoshi? Rada has been like a top 3 card in the deck, honestly. Really? Oh, is that what your name is? Just Ass? Oh, I'm stupid. Rada has... Really? This has been a top 3? You draw so many cards, lets you put... maybe. I mean, I could see that. So you think Rada is like worth keeping? It might be. Maybe I'm wrong, you know? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you cut something else instead, because I think maybe you cut the Survivors if you think the Rada is worth it, but honestly, I think Flame Shadow Conjuring, Urbrass Forge, and the Raceway are like easy slam dunks in this, right? I mean, like, Flame Shadow Conjuring is going to put in like crazy work in this deck. Is the Rada really that good? I'm kind of surprised to hear that a little bit. Just missed the bit on how decks, how to have a deck review. Just finished a spike it. Yeah, so there's you submit it through Patreon basically. So when you join the Patreon, you can join the Discord. In the Discord, I like ping people and like post about it, and then there's like a Patreon post that I make, and then you just reply with your deck list to that post essentially. Known to have the Eternal. Yeah, that's like 5 mana. Seems like you don't want too many 5-drops in a deck like this, and it already has 6. And I think like Urbrask is pretty good, and Pinnacle Monk is one of those, which is basically a land. I don't know. I'm curious. I want to see you like make these changes, and let me know how it goes. Maybe I'm wrong about Rada. If you think it's really good because of the card draw, like I can believe it. But definitely add the Forge and the Conjuring. I think this will be good. Alright, we'll move on to the next deck. Feel free to, of course, like, DM me or whatever on Patreon if you have any more questions about your list, or if you missed the stream live. You're going to Rada, you should also add Duskwatch Recruiter, both Nylia. Yeah. That's true. There could be more like mana sinks, but then you're like adding mana sinks for other cards in the 99, and it's kind of awkward then. Okay, now we have Arumi Big Mana by Nitsab33. So this deck is pretty sweet. It's kind of like a, it's just Reanimator essentially, right? Yeah, what up, Grung? It's basically Reanimator, right? You just like encore a creature, which is cool. So there's a couple of changes to this list. You didn't really have any haste enablers, and I feel like being able to have like a Lightning Greaves or Swiftfoot Boots in play, and then just that lets you threaten at any point. You could just cast your commander, tap it that turn, and like do something big, right? Which is huge, and I think that like that was kind of missing from the list. And then Kitsa, I think, is like a better looter than some of the other stuff you have, and it's like pretty great in a deck like this because you want to be looting your big stuff in the bin, right? A couple of changes. Songs of the Damned. The actual number of creatures we have isn't that much. It just seems like a situational dark ritual, and I don't know. It felt a little win more to me. Cosign to Memory. Maybe this is like a meta call or something, but it only counters like triggered abilities or colorless spells. I wouldn't recommend playing this in like a random pod. So I don't know. I was kind of iffy on this. If this is a meta call and you like specifically are trying to fight colorless decks or something, like let me know. Yeah, exactly. She eats the grave as well, right? So you have to like exile things, which makes songs even more awkward. Yeah. And then Bog Witch turns anything in your hand into a Dark Ritual and is a discard outlet. It's really slow though. It's so slow, and it's so awkward when you draw this on like turn 4 or something. It's just You'd recommend Invasion of Amonkhet? That was Invasion of Amonkhet again. Is that the battle? I feel like I booted every battle out of my head. Oops. Oops. Invasion of Amonkhet, this one. Enters each player mills 3, then each opponent discards a card and you draw a card. That's not awful. Battles hype. They're funny. They're funny. I don't know how good they are. I haven't really used many battles, so like I'm a little out of the loop in terms of how good they are, but I've also seen like nobody play them, so I feel like they're just kind of bad. So I don't know. Overall, this list is pretty sweet. Oh man, I should be talking about the brackets. It's kind of interesting, right? Like this is a bracket 3 deck just because of Bolas' Citadel. I think if you remove this, it's bracket 2. I don't know. This feels like a 2 or 3, I guess. I'm not really sure. I'm very curious how the brackets are going to work. Easy to flip in the cards excellent. It seems alright. It seems okay. I don't know. I'm not sold on Invasion Amonkhet yet. It seems decent. But those are my changes for this list. I think these are just too niche, too slow. And the threat from the haste is like really scary. What's the pricing on submitting decks? So 2 patrons get like 1 raffle ticket a month, which is $5. And then the 2-3 patrons get 2 raffle tickets a month. And tier 3 is like $10. Borish Birds Band Together by Don't Call Me Blues. Man, okay, so this gives birds banding. The 2-mana discard each opponent creatures. Yeah, those are not bad either. It hopes it makes it find better cards than the generically strong game changers. That's true. I mean, there's. I'm not unhappy with brackets. If you haven't listened to the podcast, Elk and I talk about our initial reaction to the brackets. So after the stream, listen to the podcast if you want to see what I say about brackets. Okay, so this commander gives. I know it says falcons, but I believe it's errata to be birds. So all birds get +1/+1, and it gives a bird banding. Which banding basically lets the creatures block as if they were like one big creature. It's very silly. So a couple of changes. So you had like Elder Landworm in here, and at first I was like, is this actually a bird? And it's just like, the type's been changed? It's not. I know you can band it as a 5/5. It's, what is this? You know? Flicker of Fate felt a little low impact. And then you played Ogier Tack. I think it's a little too slow for this deck. I know I like this card, generally, but I feel like it felt a little slow for this list. I think you wanted to be a bit more aggressive, maybe? So a couple of changes. And I know if you added Elder Landworm as a pet card, instead, maybe Formation, it's another way to give banding, and then you get to cantrip. Kind of funny. You like the chaotic podcast? It was, the section we cut was even more, like, chaotic. Lieutenant Qatar. This is a bird that has a useful ability. I was surprised it wasn't in the deck. And then Mirror Entity. Also a bird, because it's a changeling, and it lets you, like, bump up the base power and toughness of all your creatures, which I think works really well for banding. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm like pretty sure this is good for banding. Otherwise, this deck is very funny. I mean, you're playing Battle Screech, Pauper All-Star, by the way, Battle Screech. You're playing, like, you know, Battle Screech and, like, Cartographer's Hawk and Celestial Gatekeeper, whatever. It's funny, right? This is a goofy bird deck. I love it. It's very cool. I really like birds. If they didn't make such terrible pets, I would have one, but I don't. Oh yeah, so just a couple of simple changes here, honestly. Is Nesting Dove in there? I think so. Nesting Dove Hawk, yeah. If you're not in the chat now, don't call me Blues. Let me know what is up with the Elder Landworm. I need to know. Do I think a 2-card combo that takes 5+ extra turns is chaining extra turns, or is that a late game 2-card combo? Because you see, that's what Elk was talking about in the podcast. Elk was like, oh, what is chaining turns? Because if you take infinite turns, that's just a combo, right? That's not the same thing as chaining 5 turns in a row, right? And chaining a deterministic infinite amount of turns is the same thing as a combo that wins the game, right? Yeah, so I think what they mean by chaining is just, taking 2 or more extra turns, but I don't know. When are we looking at the next Patreon viewer games? Either next week or the week after that. Maybe both. We will see. I have another thing to do with the patrons that I want to stream, so it might just be one set of Patreon games. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Cleopatra by Ruby Storm. So Cleopatra is kind of interesting. It's at the beginning of your end step, you put 2 counters on 2 other legendary creatures, which is sweet. And then whenever a legendary creature with counters, not +1/+1 counters, legendary creature with counters dies, draw a card for each counter on it, you lose 2 life. Pretty sweet, right? This is pretty awesome. So a couple of quick changes. Umori the Collector. I know you're heavy on creatures, and it is a legendary creature. And I assume you name creatures to make them cost 1 less. Your curve isn't that high that I feel like this is super worth. I feel like you're not I don't think the ramp is like that relevant. It just feels a bit maybe win more, a bit slow. Savra, you're not sacrificing too many creatures. It felt a bit slow, maybe a little low impact. Evolution Sage, I get the landfall, I get the proliferate, all well and good. We don't have like that many like landfall type things, so I feel like if you draw this late game, it's going to be a little bit like do nothing, or maybe you're going to get 1-2 proliferates out of it if you're lucky. I don't know, it seemed kind of iffy. Storm King's Thunder is X +5 taken extra. Yeah, exactly. So that would count as chaining extra turns, I think, because it's not infinite, it's finite. But I feel like realistically, it's the same thing as a 2-card combo. Samet getting away with murder again? I know. Could be a good commander for 10 by the ring stuff? Maybe. Umori was just in the 99. It was not companioned. So a couple of changes. Kona Rescue Beastie, legendary creature, and instead of just making your, legendary creatures cost 1 less, just play Kona, put some counters on it, make it big, attack, and then if it survives, just cheat a creature into play. That's way better than making it cost 1 less. And then Pelucranos. Oh man, Pelucranos is sweet. Deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures an opponent controls when it becomes monstrous. And then they deal damage equal to its power to Pelucranos, which is like fine. You can stack counters on this with Cleopatra, make it monstrous, have it essentially multi-fight, and then it will fight, get fought back, die, and then you draw a bunch of cards. Like, oh, come on. Pelucranos is perfect for this deck. And he's like dirt cheap these days with the list printing. I forgot to mention that. Usually in these, I don't recommend cards that cost more than $10. And then Snakeskin Veil. Your commander is really crucial to this deck. It's your card draw engine. I feel like it's going to eat some spot removal. Maybe a Snakeskin Veil could be great. It lets you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature and give hexproof. Pretty nice interaction here. Only 1 mana. All in all, pretty sweet list. I think this is a strong deck. I just think these changes will make it a little bit more... they're a little bit more high impact. Do they run any Hydras? They have a few. They have the other Pelucrinoses in here, and I think there's like... this is a Hydra? No. Maybe just the other Hydra, actually. Maybe just the other Pelucrinose. I feel like there could be more Hydras in here for sure. That is another thing to add. Oh, this is another Hydra, right? There's a couple. Okay, we got... he does have Tackle Maggot, yes. A Tackle Maggot is in the deck, and it puts -0/-1 counters. It's very funny. Okay, I got Dargo, Shipwrecker, Silas next, and this is a Salvaging Station deck. Where is it? There it is. It's a Salvaging Station deck. Woo, we got a bubble deck. I love it. Excellent. Few changes. All right, we're missing Executioner's Capsule. This is like one of the best cards with Salvaging Station, right? You kill something, it untaps the station, you just tap, put the capsule in play, untap the station. It's so sweet. Grim Bauble is kind of like that. It's like a mini Executioner's Capsule. Imskeer Iron Eater, it's kind of just better than Bosch. And then you had Krark Clan Ironworks. I think it's an upgrade over Ashnod's Altar. Obviously, it is like a more expensive version as well, so, like, you know, if it's out of budget, I get that. It's just a strict upgrade, I think, in this deck specifically. But I understand why you might be running Altar instead of Ironworks. And then Ornithopter felt a little low impact. It's also can't be hit by Salvaging Station, so it's a bit awkward. Bosch, like I said, it's a weaker Imskeer. I think Imskeer just does what Bosch does, but better. And then you have Blightsteel Colossus in here, and here's the awkward thing about Blightsteel is it doesn't work with like Goblin Welder because it shuffles back in. It doesn't work with Scrap Mastery. You have to kind of hard cast it, and it's like, that's a lot of mana. January deck review in February. Yeah, so I have people submit like towards the end of January, and then I do the reviews, and when I'm done reviewing all the decks, I do the thing. So they submitted it last month at the end of the month. So because people get the whole month to do a submission basically. I guess I could have them submit at the start of the month, but then like if a patron joins like 2 weeks into the month, they wouldn't be able to submit, and that's kind of awkward. So I think it's just more fair to like newer patrons to like allow the submissions towards the end. There's some good Grave Hate Baubles to choose from. Yes. They have some. They have like Nile Spellbomb in here, and I think there's a Lantern of Insight. A Soul Guide Lantern, I mean. Classic teacher's favorite wannabe behavior. Look, I'm not going to hate on anybody for submitting an artifact deck here. And this is a sweet artifact deck. Make no mistake. This is awesome. This is very cool. I love Dargo. Alright, this commander's cool. What's the blue creature from Alara that could return an artifact to hand, put one from hand onto the battlefield? Oh, Master Transmuter? Yeah, that's a better thing for Blightsteel Colossus, because it goes from hand. Which they're not running Master Transmuter. They're running Goblin Welder, which is powerful in its own right because it's a 1-drop compared to 4, but just doesn't work with this, and I think you're hard casting this, which is awkward. Next deck. Draw Your Heart Out by X Millhouse. This is a Queen Marchesa group slug forced draw spiteful visions deck. Which is awesome, right? They're forcing discard, they're forcing draw, they're doing all sorts of shenanigans, Temple Bell, Teferi's Puzzle Box, all that crap, right? Yeah, Jessica Planeswalker with Dargo is pretty sweet because they get 21 someone. Yeah, what up, Nitsab? Consign to Memory is there to counter the Encore's sack at end of turn. Oh, dude, I totally... Alright, hang on. Since Nitsab hopped on the chat, let's take a... We're going to go back for a second here. Okay. You can counter your own Encore and keep the creatures. Interesting. Okay, I didn't think about that. That's kind of funny. Oh, wow. I didn't recognize this, but Architect actually recognized it as cheat sack triggers. That's very funny. Interesting. Okay. Well, let me find a better cut then, you know? Let me find a better cut. Now, with Teferi's Veil phasing out, I assume that works with Encore, right? It dodges the trigger. Well, now this is tricky, because your list is pretty good. Like, it seems like a pretty well put together list. So I struggle to find good cuts. Maybe Trickster Mage. It is a bit... Doubling up on your commander is a bit win more. Could be an interesting cut. You know? Yo, thank you, David, for the super chat. Just because I like what you do, keep it up. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's awesome. I kind of forgot about super chats. Interesting. Okay, I didn't see the consigned to memory synergy there. That's very funny. It's funny that Architect knew what it was, and I didn't. Yeah. Remove Dark Deal? Yeah, maybe Dark Deal. Here's the thing is, it's like -1 card, -2 cards for you, right? And then it's -1 card for all opponents. So total for your opponents is -3. For you, it's -2, right? I could have activated your categories. You know, so here's the thing. Maybe Dark Deal does kind of suck. So here's the thing about the categories is, I mean, maybe I should be swapping them in and out, but I when I look at a list, I like to sort by artifact, creature, whatever, because when I think to myself, ooh, Search for Escanta is good, I don't want to see if you put it in self-mill or card draw, but I just want to look for the card, and I know it's an enchantment. So it's, like, easier for me to, like, keep track of. Yeah, maybe Dark Deal is a better cut. Dark Deal is kind of doo-doo. I don't know. Now I'm kind of like... It's tricky, you know? This list looks really, really good, honestly. It's like... I know it looks like a lot of like weird stuff like Teferi's Veil, but it feels relatively efficient. Yeah. Those are my changes. Nitsab, you know, if you still want to like talk more about it, like feel free to like ding me in the Discord and we can talk more about your list. I gotta move on for time reasons, but your list interests me because I think it's efficient. So back to this Queen Marchesa list. So they're like a burn, force draw effect type thing. Another list that I think is just bracket 3 because it has 1 Smothering Dive, which is very good in this deck. So a couple of changes. The Unscrupulous Lad, slow, bad. Tormod's Crypt, I appreciate Graveyard Hate in a deck like this. Soul Guide Lantern, I think, is just better. Rebuff the Wicked, way too niche. I've played this card in many a deck. It sucks. Chromatic Lantern. I am a Chromatic Lantern hater. Maybe I should talk about this with the lads on the podcast at some point. If your mana base sucks and you need Chromatic Lantern to fix it, then your deck is just bad until you draw Chromatic Lantern, right? So in which case, instead of spending, $3-5 on Chromatic Lantern, you should buy like 2 check lands. It should make your mana base better, right? And then if your mana base is fine, which your mana base is fine, by the way, right? We're playing like filter lands and shock lands and check lands. Then you don't need it. It's just a 3-mana Arcane Signet, which is like, that just seems bad, right? So those are my cuts. Additions. Bottomless Pit. If we're forcing everyone to draw extra cards to burn them, having them discard at random is so annoying because as opposed to just forcing them to discard 1 card, they might hit the best card they drew of the however many, which is pretty sweet. Someone in chat, yes, Space Canary. Blacksmith skill could be a better addition. Instead of a different buff effect, I suggested Sculpting Steel. Well, actually, Sculpted Seal is kind of more instead of Chromatic Lantern. You might be like, all right, this isn't a mana rock, but it can be, right? If your opponent has a Soul Ring, it's just better than Chromatic Lantern, right? Because you're making an untapped Soul Ring. But also, you can copy your Howling Mine. You can copy your Puzzle Box to double up all those triggers. It's easy to have this be a mana rock because your opponents probably have one in play. I think it's really good. You can also double up your Psychosis Crawler, which is like great, or this Scrawling Crawler, right? Pretty good. And then I felt like you needed more wheels. Wheel of Misfortune is just good. It's another great wheel thing, and it also does damage to people, which is kind of funny and works with the deck. Three mana ramp isn't horrible, but if your commander is 4 mana, prefer. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't work super well in the curve here, and I think Sculpting Steel, if you need a 3 mana rock, will be the 3 mana rock often enough that it just replaces Chromatic Lantern. And late game, this is just better, you know? I think it has its place in Nimbus Reborn. Chromatic Lantern, every spell is multicolored. I mean, yes, like, if you have, like, really strict, like, mana requirements in your deck, it could be worth, but generally speaking, I think it's an overrated kind of bad card. Cool deck, by the way. I want to play against this on stream. It would be very funny. I need to pick up the pace. So I got some stuff going on this evening, so... Okay, so Edward Kenway is a assassin pirate vehicle deck. So you want assassins, pirates, and vehicles, and there is a lot of vehicles in this deck. It is awesome. Very cool. Couple of changes here. Piracy Charm. Is this here for flavor reasons? It doesn't seem that good. Imposter Mech. I know it's a vehicle, but it only copies your opponent's creatures, which is way more awkward than you might think. Because unless they just actually have something big and scary and crazy, you'd rather copy your own creature to get like a synergy piece, you know? Dream Color Siren. I know it's a pirate, but like, what the heck is this? You're holding up 4 mana for this? Way too inefficient. Boarding Party. It's like a gajillion mana. I know it's like a 2-for-1 technically, because you like cast a second creature, but it's like a 6/3 with haste. It's not that scary. Couple of changes. I noticed you had like no board wipes. So we definitely need some board wipes, especially because you're a vehicle deck. You dodge all the board wipes. You can board wipe, and all your vehicles stay alive, and the next turn you cast creatures, and your vehicles can still attack. I just picked Blood Money because you have treasure synergies or want treasures. But it can be any board wipes. Blasphemous Act is another good one. Like, maybe 2. Back in Town lets you reanimate outlaws, which includes pirates. Kind of cool. And then, from Aetherdrift, the new Fearless Swashbuckler. It has haste. It gives your vehicles haste. And then whenever you attack, if a pirate and vehicle attack this combat, which you totally can do, you get to draw 3 cards and discard 2, which is awesome. That is really good. Honestly, really great pirate commander by himself. 100,000% needs to be in the 99 of this deck. Otherwise, cool deck. I like vehicles. This probably shouldn't come as a shock to anybody, but I think vehicles are cool. And I saw that you had already added some Aetherdrift stuff. I was surprised you didn't add the Swashbuckler. I think he's worth a slot. Esper, I hardly know her. By Yakinwaith. So this is an Alela Artful Provocateur deck. Oh yeah, no, Aetherdrift had great pirate synergies. Aetherdrift is a sweet set, alright? Anybody who's like, Aetherdrift sucks, L take. Terrible take. It's full of awesome cards for EDH, full of crazy cards for like other formats too. Like, Bright Glass Gear Hulk is like doing stuff in Standard. Like, come on, that's so cool. So this is a rather high power Alela deck. Which made making cuts very difficult. So normally I don't recommend expensive cards, but I kind of had to here because you already had all the good cheap stuff. Urza Saga, look, I know it's pricey. If you can get one for this deck, yeah, it's kind of good, right? Couple of cuts. I think this is way too slow. 6 mana. I think your deck wants to be a little faster than that. The Encore's like a gajillion mana too. I don't know. Oh, you joined late. It was a funny bird deck. Elder Worm was the only mono-white dragon with Defender. So it lets you draw after... Oh, works with other Defender cards. Oh. I see. Okay, I was wondering what the heck the Elder Landworm was for. Okay. I mean, like, keep it if you want to play it. I was just really confused by it. I think the funny banding card I suggested is maybe a better pet card because it does banding stuff as well, but yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, cool cards with a bad story, right? Ruthless Technomancer. I think this card's a little slow, and it's like you sack a creature, you draw equal to its power. We don't have that many high power creatures. I feel like it's a little awkward in this deck. Oh yeah, Saga is not on the it's not on the Game Changers list, but I think it's in Commander. It's not that scary. It's a really good card, but it's not that scary. So a couple of replacements for the Angel and the Ruthless Technomancer. Etchings of the Chosen. A lot of people forget about this card. It is really good. You play this, you name Fairy. It gives all your fairies +1/+1. Excellent. Then you sack a fairy to give a creature, to give target creature indestructible, right? You only have to sack a creature of the chosen type. It doesn't just give your commander indestructible, it is any of your creatures indestructible, which is really good, especially because you're going to make a ton of random fairies that you can just sack away to this. Super great. Shimmer Dragon. It easily has hexproof. Tap 2, untap artifacts, draw a card. If you're spending 6 mana instead of the Angel, I think Shimmer Dragon's just better in this deck. Oh yeah, Saga is technically, it's counted in the tutor thing, but I don't think it needs to be a game changer. So Shimmer Dragon I think is better than the Angel. Etchings I think is better than the Technomancer. And then you didn't have the Sword of the Meek Foundry combo in here. I think it's kind of worth. I don't know if you didn't... I didn't want to, like, dig around and cut things for it because I didn't know if you excluded this for a specific reason. Like, you didn't want to have an infinite combo with, like, the Altar or something. I just really like these cards, so I wanted to throw it in there and just talk about it, but I understand if you didn't want to add that. Yo, what up, Professor Bear? Put Etchings of the Chosen in your Sidar Jabbar deck. It's so good. Yes. Etchings of the Chosen is a crazy card. It's so strong. I have lost to this card before. Ethereal Absolution has been really good. Your Orzhov token Epidex. That card's not bad either. Okay, Warrior 4356 submitted Everybody Fight, which is a Marisi Breaker of the Coil Goad deck. I love Goad. We all know this, right? Couple of changes. Sky Knight Legionnaire, I know it has haste. I know it curves into your commander kind of nicely. I think it's a little low impact, especially late game. Combat Calligrapher, I was actually just talking to Snail about this card, and he was like, Snail was saying that he cut it from his deck because it's really bad, and I was thinking about cutting it from yours, and I was like, okay, Snail also thinks the card is kind of meh. So I'm like, I'll take that as I think it reads poor, and then he's also saying he thinks it's bad, so like, I cut it, There's a new token juggler from the Hackton deck, can't recall the card. No Skull Clamp for the deck? No, he had Skull Clamp in the other deck. Am I crazy? I might have missed it. Yeah, Skull Clamp's in there. Yeah, that's part of why the saga is so good. Yo, what up, Robert? Just running the stream. Any thoughts on the Game Changer list and brackets? I talk about it in the podcast. You're gonna have to go click on the podcast, my friend. Elk and I give our initial takes, and we talk about it. There's a little YouTube short for a little snippet of it. But there's a few things that I think are kind of missing from the bracket system and the Game Changers list. And we debate about a couple of the cards that are not on and on. So if you want to hear what Elk and I have to say, check it out. Nah, you're good, Yoshi. It's there's a lot of cards flying on screen. So to replace these two cards, Loyal Apprentice, I think it does what Sky Knight Legionnaire does for you, but better. And then I'm recommending this card again. It is so sweet. This means you're probably gonna deal damage to somebody. It also hits unreasonably hard, and when someone is tapped out because you goaded all their stuff, you just attack them again, and then you myriad the other two players. Oh man, this card is so sweet. A couple of changes. I think we can cut a couple of basics to add a Sundering Eruption, which is I know it's a tapped land on the other side, but you could pay 3 life to have it untapped. It's pretty good. And then it destroys a land its controller may search their library for a bird-safe land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. But then it says, creatures without flying can't block this turn, which is just a great way to give your stuff unblockable, basically. I think you swap a mounted for it. I think you can cut a plains for Slayer's Stronghold. It is a haste enabler. Target creature gets +2/+0, vigilance, and haste. If somebody, let's say somebody cast a board wipe, you can cast your commander, give it haste and vigilance, dome someone for 7. That's pretty sweet, right? It just gives haste to stuff, and I mean, haste and vigilance is great. For 2 mana on an untapped land, come on. Stream is unlucky timing when everyone who hasn't seen the recent podcast. No, now when they tune into the stream, I can talk about the podcast. It's all one circle, right? Check the bracket out. Yeah, I think that the bracket system is significantly better than the initial thing they teased. Okay, we got Give Lizard Commander Deck Final ? By Gecko Gamer, a fellow lizard enthusiast. When's the podcast? It came out today, like a couple hours ago. Yeah, it's on the channel already. It's the one we have Commander Balmy on. New Chandra Sparkhunter seemed pretty good, and Edward, maybe. She makes vehicles, right? I'm not a big Planeswalker and casual EDH kind of guy, So Gev, I love Gev. When you cast lizards, he deals damage to players, and then creatures enter with a counter for each opponent who lost life this turn. You can do combos with him. You can go lizards. This, a fellow lizard enthusiast, built a lizard deck, which is cool. I love it. Couple of changes. So I didn't really change any of the lizards themselves, because that's the easy part, right? You go to Scryfall, you type in lizard, you look at all the lizards, right? So that's easy, right? I don't need to tell you to do that. I'm talking about the support cards. Stab, a little low impact. I think it's not going to kill enough. Fell, sorcery speed, a bit awkward in my opinion. And Faithless Looting, we don't have enough graveyard synergies. I know it churns through your deck kind of nicely, but not enough graveyard synergies. Few changes. I want to protect our board, right? The weakness of decks like this is just getting board wiped, right? So, what are our solutions? Cauldron of Souls. This card is awesome. 1, you hold it up. If they cast a board wipe, give your whole team persist, and they all come back. Bada bing, bada boom, right? You've saved your board. But, more importantly, with Gev, this card is awesome. You can attack at players, and if let's say you've already bolt waved, right? You bolt wave or something, you attack everybody, activate Cauldron of Souls. Yeah, if they block and kill, then what happens is your creature dies, comes back, gets the -1/-1 counter, gets the +1/+1 counters from Gev, removing the -1/-1 counter, which means next turn you can persist again. It's so good in this deck. It's awesome. And then Blood for the Blood God. You might be like, hey, how was this board wipe protection? When you empty your hand to cast all your stuff, if somebody goes, board wipe, then cool, whatever. I made this cost like 6 less or whatever. Instant speed, cast this, refuel back up to 8. Cool. Next turn you can redump your hand. I think it's pretty great, Yeah, to transfer between Moxfield and Architect, you just go to export. Both of them have export functions that you can use. Sometimes you get a stab, so I think that's true. And then Fiery Confluence. So this is a card that Elk was talking about on an old video we did back before I even started the podcast. We did a collab before. And so one of the cool things is it can deal 2 damage to each opponent as one mode, which instantly turns on your commander like fully, right? So you can deal 6 to each opponent, make all your dudes get way bigger and just go aggro. You can deal 6 to each opponent and then 2 to each creature, or deal 2 to each opponent and destroy 2 artifacts. I think all of these modes work pretty well in this deck in particular. So those are my changes. Just a couple of changes to the support cards. Otherwise, I love it. Yeah, I can't hate on a lizard deck. Okay. Next we got Group Hug, question mark. I hope those pincers don't hurt. By Riv NA is collection. So Red Death Shipwrecker lets you tap goad a creature. That player draws a card, and then you add red. So it is a mana dork / goad / forced draw card. Very weird, commander. Very strange. So what are we doing here? Look, you're playing cards like Spiraling Ember. Deals damage equal to target creature or player equal to the number of cards in your hand. You're playing everybody draws, everybody gets burned for the draw type effects. I get it. Cool. Very fun. Here are my suggestions. Fiendish Duo, a little too high mana. It's really slow. Double Cast is kind of the worst spell copy effect. I felt like you had too many copy effects and not enough actual things you want to copy. Mechanized Production, it is funny to mechanize production an Ebony Owl or Howling Mine. Really slow, though. Trove of Temptation, I think you will die when you play this card. That's my thought. So here's a couple of changes. If we're trying to burn people out by drawing cards and playing Spiraling Embers and crap, the new Crawler is a good addition. The new old Psychosis Crawler, also great. And then Master the Way. If you want to play Spiraling Embers, Master the Way is like the same thing, but it draws a card. It's pretty funny. And then you copy it and you can, like, I don't know, hit someone for like 20 or whatever. And then Crawl Space, I felt like you needed more ways to protect yourself, not Trove of Temptation. Yeah, otherwise a neat, weird list. I kind of want to see it in action, but kind of funny. I mean, Cerebral Vortex is pretty hilarious, so yeah, cool deck. Haven't had enough updates on my Blue Tongue Skink. Jojo, he's good. He's good. He's on a bit of a diet because he's like an ounce overweight. Probably giving him too many treats. So he's on a bit of a diet. But he's doing good. He's doing fine. I think he's just taking a nap after eating right now. Okay, next deck is Grow and Show by Simple Python, which is a Thrasios Yoshimaru deck. So this deck is leaning a little bit more on Thrasios than Yoshimaru. There's a lot of not legendary creatures in here, right? Lotus Cobra, Mossborn Hydra, Tireless Provisioner, Tireless Tracker, Terastodon, right? Just finished editing your first video. Oh, nice. Very cool. So I lost my train of thought. So it's not leaning too heavily on Yoshimaru, but, you know, there's some legendary synergies here. So a couple of changes. I don't think we're landfalling enough for, like, Scape Shift and Splendid Rack to be that good. Distant Melody only works if you already have, like, a bunch of Scoot Swarms in play. Oh, by the way, this is, like, a Scoot... They want to play stuff like Springheart and Nantaku. I think there's not Scoot Swarm here, sorry. Thinking of another deck that's coming up. Springheart and Nantaku is their token thing, which does work with stuff like Distant Melody, but it seems a bit win more. Concorder Crossroads, I think this is more of like a slow mid-range deck. I don't think you need this. Couple of changes. Yeah, we're playing like a lands green deck with 34 lands. The hell? So I just recommended 4 lands. Alchemist Refuge, Hall of Storm Giants, Restless Vinestock, and Tyrite Sanctum, which is pretty sweet. I think all these are great, and I think you need more lands in this deck. Especially if you're playing like Thrasios, you know? Otherwise, cool deck. You know, it's Bant's good stuff, really. Nothing more to say about it. You made a guide for Tor Joaquin. That's cool. Is your channel just called Grungy? Is it the same thing as your username here? Michael, sometimes listening to the podcast makes it feel my decks aren't hipster enough. I mean, like, your deck is as hipster as you want it to be. All right, you know, you don't need to match our wackiness. What are my thoughts on the 8x8 or 9x7 deck? I have no clue what those are, but they probably are not great. I'm not a big deck building template fan. I made a video about that. I think it's called like the EDH deck building template or something. I made a video about deck building templates. I would recommend checking it out. Okay, this is a Carlock aggro deck. It's pretty sweet. We're making extra combats, we're attacking, we're hitting dudes, etc., etc. Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's an aggro deck. I don't know what else to say, I guess. A couple of changes. Rending Volley. 4 damage to a blue or white creature? What? Why? Why isn't this just like Flame Slash? Like, I don't know. Magna, I know it makes treasures and you want to attack, but like, it feels a bit slow. Kaido, I think this thing just dies. I don't think it's very good. So a couple of changes. Thieving Skydiver. It's something you can play early game as a thing to attack with and get damage in, but it also lets you like yoink artifacts, which is pretty sweet. Mockingbird, I kind of like this as a, again, early game thing you can play that is like a creature that attacks, it flies, but doubling up on a lot of these, you know, kind of like effects can be like really powerful. Doubling up on, I just saw it. Combat Celebrant is like crazy good. Double Enduring Courage is like really scary. Fear Missing Out, doubling up, like there's a lot of sweet things that we can double up here. There's a lot of legends in here. Maybe it's awkward. I don't know. I feel like it's pretty strong though. Love Thieving Skydiver. Yeah, it's good. I've been here for like 10 minutes and you said I made a video about that at least thrice. I make a lot of videos. 2 a week is a lot if you think about it. Like in a year, right? There's like 52 weeks in a year. There's like 104 videos. I don't coin new terms like Snail. Snail do be coining new terms. He loves doing that. And then Keep Watch. Draw a card for each attacking creature. I think you go wide enough for this to be good. Like 3 mana, draw 4 is like not bad. Any more is like pretty good. There's a lot of extra combats in the deck. Mana that already gives extra combats. Yeah, I suppose. But isn't more extra combats like fine? Right, because then it's like, you know, when you have an opening to attack a player, that becomes 3 openings all of a sudden, and you just like blow them up. Is chaining extra combats like most of what chaining extra turns does? I mean, like, kind of, yeah. It is definitely like not as time consuming because you don't have to untap, upkeep, draw, play spells with the mana that you untapped with. But yeah, I could see what you're saying. If you chain like 3 extra combats, like do you just how different is that than taking an extra turn? I don't know. Cool deck though. I like this. Very aggro. Alright, now we got a Meeda control. So if you don't know Meeda the Lion, you discard 2 cards from your hand, pay 4 mana, destroy all creatures except it, and they can't be regenerated. So it's like a Wrath of God on a dude, and you have to discard 2 cards for it. At instant speed, which is kind of crazy. And he doesn't destroy himself, which is also nuts. So a couple of changes here. I think you're missing Ondu Inversion. I know it's just another board wipe, but golly, this card is so good. It's a land early game, and it's another board wipe late game. So sweet. World Queller. I don't think you have enough fodder to sacrifice to this. And I think sacking lands is too slow to it. Withered Wayfarer. You don't have fetches. I think it's also kind of slow, and you don't have that much to do with the lands. We're not playing like Squirrel Rack or anything. Smuggler's Share. I think this card's like garbage. This card's terrible. Every time I play it, people just play around it, and I just draw no cards and make no treasures. It's like awful. Yeah, extra combats is a fancy anthem. That is true. It's kind of like a fancy anthem. It's like that damage doubler, right? I already talked about Ondu Inversion. Invoke Justice. I think this card's sweet. You return a permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield, then redistribute counters, right? Now let's return a permanent, right? So it can get back the Eternal Wanderer and then put counters on your commander, which is sweet. But also you can do stuff like, oh, put Cataclysmic Gearhulk back into play, put 4 counters on it. Now I just board wiped you with my Gearhulk. And I have a 8/9 vigilance to bash you with afterwards. Pretty sweet. And then brought back. I know we're playing a lot of board wipes here. Brought back is pretty sweet with Magetta. So, yeah, cool mono white control deck. I think this is awesome. I like this list. You probably also need a scroll rack, but it's a bit expensive, so, you know. Okay, next is Red Deck in a Dream by QB Phantom with the new Hazet Godseeker. So if you don't know this card, it is 2 mana for a 5/3 indestructible haste. Start your engines. Pay 1 tap, target creature with power 2 or less. Can't be blocked this turn. And then Hazet can't attack or block if you don't have max speed. So, a few changes here. 1, Stigma Lasher. If you're playing an aggro deck and you can make it unblockable, this card is awesome. You hit a player, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. That is, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. They can't gain life for the rest of the game. That is crazy. This is so good in aggro deck. It is a must-have here. You have to do that. Yes, North Ketchup. To get your decks reviewed, you have to be a patron. It's like a raffle system. And then the longer you're a patron and the more your deck doesn't get picked, the odds of it getting picked go up. And I'm going to do 25 a month. Another addition, Life of the Party. Super awesome this, because it gets the power when it attacks. So you can give it unblockable with Hazet, and then just swing in for like a ton of damage. And it gives 3 goated things that do a bunch of damage. It's pretty sweet. Yo, what up, Yoshi? Have fun at your LGS. Yeah, I should be fine. I mean, I gotta do a couple of I gotta take the dog to our like dog training. Yeah, no problem. No problem, Ketchup. If I opened it up to like literally everyone, I would have like 1,000 reviews. It'd be like it'd be worthless. And ultimately, it's just like a patron perk. One Drunk Wizard, hot take, max speed is not very good. I'm gonna talk about in spoilers for Friday's video. I'm gonna be talking about parasitic mechanics like start your engines, energy, stuff like that. And I think in Commander, it's like better than people think it is. But we'll see. You'll see in Friday's video. A couple of cuts. Faithless Looting. It's like card disadvantage. I really don't like this card without graveyard synergies. And you want to be casting a 1-drop on turn 1 anyway. Slumbering Dragon. It can't attack as a 1-drop for a while. I've played this card before for a hot minute and it sucks. A couple of other additions. Let's get some of these mountains out of here and just put all of the max speed raceways in here. It's a haste enabler. It's a elude effect. It's a soul land. I mean, come on. How are you missing these? Those are my suggestions. You can politic the pain land and make deals, yeah, or crack a fetch, you know? Okay. Next, Slimefoot, Saproling Surprise by Aether Archmage. It's a Slimefoot the Stowaway deck. Okay, he's a cool commander, classic at this point, right? He's been around for a while. So again, just like the Lizard deck, I didn't really change many of the fungi and Saprolings because you can go to Scryfall type fungi and pick the ones you want, right? Here's what I suggested. 1, you had Murder. I think Go for the Throat is better. It hits basically enough things, and it costs 1 less mana. It's great. Ranger's Guile. Yeah, you can give a creature Hexproof, which is pretty sweet. But you can also regenerate your entire team, which since this deck is going wide, I think that's just better, you know? Oops. My phone is going off. What the heck? And then you had Spore Swarm, which is like fine. It makes 3 saplings. But I think Sprout Swarm is better. So, yes, it's 2 mana, make 1 sapling, which seems bad. And you're like, buyback for 3? Like, I guess. but it has Convoke, and Convoke can be used to pay for the buyback. So if you just have 5 untapped creatures, that is 1 free Saproling, and this card goes back to hand. And then next turn, you could even tap that free Saproling you got to pay for the next Sprout Swarm. And then those 2 can pay for the next one, and so on and so forth. And eventually you'll have 10 untapped, and you can make 2, and you can just kind of hold up blockers and then make more dudes. It's one of the craziest cards in Limited. And really great in alliteration magic, if anybody's ever played that. But it's really good in this deck too, I think. So those are my changes. Reject to go for Embrace Terror. I mean, terror is like not bad. I just mean like, you know, something better than murder, you know. It doesn't have to be exactly go for the throat. Next we have a Gale Waterdeep Prodigy deck. So this commander is like, when you cast an instant or sorcery from hand, you get to cast the other type from your graveyard. Now, that is paying the mana cost. It's not like a free thing, right? But, you know, in theory, you want to cast, like, a cheap instant like Frantic Search, which lets you reuse, you know, an expropriate you discarded earlier or something like that, you know, which is cool. No Ashnod's Altar. I didn't want to suggest Ashnod's Altar because I'm presuming that they know of the card and they didn't include it intentionally. So a couple of suggestions for this deck. Unfulfilled Desires. It's kind of funny, but I feel like a little slow. Not a great... I don't think we need a mana sink. Soren's Vengeance. Funny, I guess. It's a 20 life point swing. Doesn't seem that good for 7 mana. And then Obsessive Stitcher is like a 3 mana Merfolk Looter that can reanimate a creature, but we barely have good creatures to reanimate, so it seems not worth. A couple of changes. You're running Factor Fiction. Why not run Black Factor Fiction? Also on the Negotiations. It's pretty great in this deck. Quicken lets you do some funny things. It's an instant, and then you can cast a sorcery from hand at flash, which then gives you the ability to cast an instant from your graveyard at instant speed, which lets you get into all sorts of weird things where you can like quicken and then you know, cast Start the TARDIS, which allows you to cast Neutralize from your graveyard. So there's a lot of like weird things that it lets you do. It's kind of cool. And it's a cantrip. And then Breach the Multiverse, I think, is a better expensive spell than Soren's Vengeance. Otherwise, you know, pretty fun list. It's a classic Gale Waterdeep deck, you know. Unfulfilled Desires is actually spiked to $20 for the... What the hell is Unfulfilled Desires? Oh, I'm so stupid. Yes. I totally blanked on the name of this card. This is like a weird old card. Sorry. I even said it, my bad. It did spike to like $20. It's a good sell right now. I agree. Yes. So I'm getting all my cards confused. Yo, what up, Wheelmaster? For Slimefoot, Illicit Masquerade. Enters the battlefield, put an imposter count on each creature. Whenever creature shows up with an imposter count, it dies. Return up to one other target creature from your graveyard. Oh, weird. The awkward thing is he does make a lot of Saproling tokens and goes wide with tokens, so it's not like... I don't know, maybe. That's kind of interesting. This is the deck I was thinking of earlier with the band deck when I said Scoot Swarm, but it wasn't in the deck. Scoot Over. So the idea is you have to play Scoot Swarm, Scoot Mob, or whatever, right? And like go crazy with it. So when I was looking at this deck, I was like, oh, obviously they already have the magical hack cards in here, right? And you didn't. I was like, what the heck? So here's a couple of cuts. Thawing Glaciers, super slow. Murkfield Liege, you don't need to buff your Scoot Swarms when you have like 1,000 of them. This thing's way too slow. All of these are magical hack cards. So what do I mean by that? Replace the text of target permanent with all instances of one color word with another, or basic land type with another, right? And these all do kind of the same thing. So Momir Vig is kind of a weird card. When you cast a green creature, search your library for a card, for a creature, put it on top. When you cast a blue creature, reveal the top of your library if it's a creature card put in your hand. So the idea with this commander is if you play a blue-green creature, you trigger both halves, and you can stack the triggers however you want. So you can put a creature on top, reveal it, put it in hand. So with Momir Vig, any 2-color creature searches up any creature you want. Now we have a lot of mono green stuff in here. What you can do with these cards is change blue to green, which means whenever you cast a green creature, you search a thing, and whenever you cast a green creature, screen flicker. Whenever you cast a green creature, you reveal, put it on top. This means once you trait doctor the Momir Vig, you can cast Llanowar Elves, which finds any other creature, and as long as that creature is green, it finds any other creature, and then so on and so forth, right? Yeah, Trait Doctor, but ideally when you cast it once for 1 mana, you're going to cast like 1, 2, 3 creatures, and then get the 3 best creatures in your deck, you know? Yeah, some of these are not. I think Alter Reality is not until end of turn, right? So it's just like permanent. It's pretty sweet. It's a very funny thing to do with Momir Vig. He's a really cool commander that lets you like utilize these. I think it's kind of funny that you didn't have them. So yeah, add in that. Yo, what up, Gecko Gamer? We already did your list, but I really liked it. Good lizards there. Oh, what up, Hi the Roth? Yo, yes. Oh, so you didn't know about the magical hack stuff from Momir Vig? Yes. It's kind of a cool thing you can do, right? It's pretty neat. And sorry, let me just go back real quick to the Vig list. A lot of these cards are like this. 78 cents, $1.80, 22 cents. They're cheap. Like, this is all easy stuff you can add to your deck on a budget. Do I have any predictions for Unbanned's Coalition victory? It has to be unbanned. It's so stupid. Such a commander card. Isochron Scepter is also not bad for trade doctoring, but like it only works with your commander, so I think you don't play the card unless you need it. So I don't know if the Isochron Scepter is worth it. I did have a Zevlor deck at one point. I just built it as a theft deck, so I played Bribery, and then you like bribery everybody. I appreciate I could help you find a new thing for your commander deck. Okay, so this deck was very interesting. So it's a second Dr. Susan Foreman deck. It's kind of like a group hug, force draw, stax deck. We're having everybody draw cards with like Struggle and Fairy Mastermind and Kami and Temple Bell. But then we're like blowing up all their lands with Armageddon and Catastrophes. A bit of an odd deck. So here are my suggestions. Cut a couple of these fogs. We have like tons of Pillar Fort effects and other fogs. Cut these fogs. Cut Teferi. I don't think we protect them very well. And maybe even cut more fogs and just add mana rocks. If we're going to blow up all of our lands, like we should be playing like Gilded Lotus and like those mana rocks that tap for like 3 mana as a way to like break parity with that. Or play Faith's Reward. You go Armageddon, you Faith's Reward all your lands back into play. Suddenly Armageddon is one-sided. Bada bing, bada boom. You win the game, right? Or Glunch. If you're okay with forcing people to draw cards, which this deck is, you can force them to draw cards, have a player with no creatures, put counters, you make treasures, 2 treasures a turn, then you Armageddon. Awesome. You're making 2 treasures a turn, you can catch back up. So yeah, interesting deck. Is very odd. If I am missing, like, Cloudstone, please let me know if I am missing the point of the deck in some capacity. Let me know, because maybe I'm missing something. This deck was very wacky. But I like it. I appreciate the wacky deck. Winds of Volrath has buyback for... Yeah. Winds of Volrath. Win cons are Iron Maiden. Oh. Yes. Or is that you in the chat? Yes. Okay. So, I did see the Iron Maiden, which is really funny. Arcane Denial that. No. Hang on. I have to make this very clear. The thing I don't like about Arcane Denial is people think it's generically good in every single blue deck as regular removal. That I don't believe is true. This is a deck that's forcing other people to draw cards. Of course Arcane Denial's good. It's a forced draw deck. This is the place where I would be recommending Arcane Denial in this. There's almost no card in the game that is bad in every single situation, right? There are cards that are good in certain situations. Like, I'm not a big fan of fogs, but if you're playing a questing beast deck, regular fog is really excellent in that deck, right? So that's my thing with. So in this deck where you're trying to force other players to draw cards, yes, 100% play Arcane Denial, right? Group hug and punishment for the mass hand size after killing lands. Right, okay, so I was kind of getting it. Yeah, Ebony Owl could also be a good add here. It kind of does the same thing as like Iron Maiden, right? This type of deck is very silly. I feel like I need to see you play this deck at some point. Like, I feel like I need to watch you play this so I can figure out like what is going on. And if I don't, yeah. I feel like I got what the deck is, right? I've made him like Arcane Denial. Clip that. No, okay. Even in my Arcane Denial video, everybody ignored, like, I'm going to tell y'all right now. When you comment on the YouTube video and you haven't watched the full video, it is painfully obvious. It is painfully obvious. Let me tell you, I know when you do it. Because then people will be like, I play Arcane Denial in my Kami of the Crescent Moon deck, and it's great there. And it's like, yeah, no, duh, I said that in the video, dude. You didn't watch the video. You can bring this and the Nethroid deck. Oh, yeah, if you have time to join in for some Patreon games, either next week or the week after, whenever I do them, please play this deck. I want to see it. Ivory Tower for life gain? That's too slow. Ivory Tower's kind of doo-doo. Wheelmaster, I believe you're in the chat, and I saw your Smeagle list. And this was a pretty good deck. Like, honestly, for, like, Golgari, Golem stuff, land things, it's, like, a pretty efficient deck. Like, you have a lot of, like, really good cards in here. And this was... I actually struggled a little bit to recommend... cards for this deck because I thought it was like pretty like well put together. Yeah, preemptive ignorance. This happened a lot on the tutor video as well. Oh my goodness, so many people were like, well, actually, a tutor is like a build your own charm where you can search for any effect which makes it good. It's like, yeah, I said that in the video, dude. Man. Okay, so Golem's Bite. Is this in here just for flavor reasons? Because this card sucks. I don't think it's worth it. It seems really bad. I would really recommend something else. I will recommend something else. And then Moldvine Reclamation. I think this card's really slow. It's 5 mana, dude. A couple of other suggestions. So one, get rid of a forest, put in a Shifting Woodland. I know it's a bit pricey, but man, this card is awesome. And I think you can turn it on easy enough. Maybe I'm wrong. Yo, what up, Gecko? You love the recommendations. I knew the gift was synergistic would persist, but I didn't know there was that stuff. Big creatures gain it as well. Yeah, exactly. No, Cauldron of Souls is going to be an all-star in your deck. I promise you. It's just for the tempt. Is that worth it? That's like 4 or 5 mana. It's crazy. Yes, Brayden. This is paid deck reviews. It's like a Patreon perk. They can enter into a raffle. Golem's Bite. It is better than Stab. This is correct, objectively. But it's not good. It's bad temp, but maybe. I had a few other suggestions. I think this will be overall better than Golem's Bite. Into the Pit. You can look at the top card at any time. You may cast spells from the top of your library by sacrificing a non-land permanent. Which kind of works with your deck, right? You do have a lot of sacrifice fodder. This is some crazy card draw. I think it's like if you cast an Avengers Zendikar, this could be like a draw 5, you know? I think this card's crazy good, and it's really slept on. Like this is going to be, once this is out of print, this is going to go up in price. Power Creep Stab, what's next? I know, it's crazy. Oh, and then Journey into Eternity. You enchant a creature, and then when the enchanted creature dies, it comes back into play under your control as a land, which taps for any mana, and then it just has pay 5 reanimate a creature. In a deck like this, where you want to be sacrificing dudes, Journey to Eternity is awesome. Like, this card is going to put in so much work, especially towards the late game. If things go bad, you get board wipe, your plan stalls, but you flipped a Journey to Eternity, you're good, right? You're great. You're just bringing everything back. So those are some changes I would make. If you really want to keep Golem's Bite, maybe you cut something else, but like, oh man, dude, this card seems so bad. It seems really bad. I don't know. I'm not sold on the Golem's Bite. But yeah, let me know what do you think of these changes if you test them out. I liked your deck though. It was really, really well put together, I think. Okay, next, Verena control non-tribal, specifically, by Bad Karma. Into the Pit, amazing. Yeah, here we go. Someone else in the chat talking about Into the Pit being good in their Smeagle deck. I'm telling you, Into the Pit is going to pop off in your list. Alright, so this is an Esper control deck, just utilizing Verena to like loot through your deck. And then it makes 2/2s as like a way to block and stuff. So this is the second time I'm reviewing this deck, I believe. So I only had 2 changes to make because I've already reviewed it. Sleight of Hand, Careful Study. I know these cantrips are like kind of nice in this type of list, but I felt like maybe we needed a little bit more like impact. So Ancient Excavation, I actually really like. It's instant speed. You get to hold up your interaction, and then you get to loot away any number of your whole hand. Sorry, you loot away your whole hand, pick up things. Early game, it can smooth out your draws as well. It's very nice in a slow control deck like this. And then Grave Titan. This is gonna seem kind of weird, right? I know this is not a zombie deck. I know this is not that type of aggressive deck, but I think you needed more cards like Scarab God or Memnarch that kind of take over the game in the later portions of the game. And these are a bit mana intensive, whereas Grave Titan kind of does that on a clean board, right? In the late game, you just go board wipe. It's kind of, the game's gone kind of late. Maybe that's the second board wipe of the game. They don't have a good answer. You play the Grave Titan and you just take a player out of the game in like 2 turns, right? Because you hit him for 6. You hit him for 8. My bad. You hit him for 10. I can't do math. Hit him for 10. You hit him for 14. That's 24. You can probably just chunk them out of the game if they can't recover from that second or third board wipe. I don't know. I just like Grave Titan here. I think you need to speed up the list a tad. Those are my thoughts. Verena did get a lot of goodies, except this isn't a zombie deck, so I don't think those go in this deck. 3-mana Ashiok can team up with Narset and be obnoxious. That's true. I don't think this deck doesn't defend a Planeswalker super well, so the Narset's really just there for the minus, I think. And then maybe a combo with Echo, and then this is just for a win, so. You overvalued Stab due to being more powerful in 60 performance. Yeah, I think Stab is just a little... I mean, it's not like it's not an unplayably bad card. I played Disfigure and like Pauper and stuff. But it's just like, there's better things to do. Volo, Bogo by Quartoth. So this is a Karuga companion card. So I'm not suggesting Karuga. It was already here. So all the cards on the deck have to be mana value 3 or greater, right? Other than lands, right? Pretty sweet companion. Couple of changes. This Merfolk is like, man, I feel like it's too slow. And then Nibble Innovator, I know it's a different type, but again, it just draws a card for 4 mana. It's like very weak. even if you copy it. Rather play cut down than stab. Yeah, agreed. Any tips on cutting down to 100 cards for commander? Take something in your deck that only does something if your deck is already working and cut that. You probably have too many of those. So Amphin Mutineer. It's a Salamander Pirate, which I think is going to... I don't think you have any other Salamanders. So I think this is pretty great. It's also removal. Elvish Spirit Guide. It's ramp. It's kind of like a Mana Dork in this deck, but it works with Karuga, which is pretty sweet. And then Bonder's Enclave. I think you just ditch like an island or forest. For this, draw a card only activate if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, which your deck has plenty of. You got one in the companion zone, so seems pretty good. Those are my changes. Otherwise, like, you know, most of the things I get why they're in there, right? It's a plant because you need something to be a plant, you know. Just cut lands. No, don't listen. Don't cut your lands. Next is Walls by Ice Cream Swagger. It's an Arcades wall deck. I mean, pretty simple, right? So here's a couple of changes. Stone Skin. I know +0/+10 is really funny in this deck, but it's just on one creature, and we don't have that much trample. I don't think it's worth. Open the Gates. I know it grabs a gate, and you have a Mace's End backup plan, but it's like a cantrip for a gate. It's so unbelievably low impact. And then Hold the Gates. Creatures in control get +0/+1 for each gate you have, and Vigilance. It seems like the weakest anthem, especially because if you just happen to like draw some of your non-gates, then it just becomes awkward. I don't know. I was thinking a couple of things. Crackdown. You have Meekstone. Crackdown's basically another Meekstone. Crystal Barricade. It's a pretty new one from Foundations. Very, very good use for a wall deck, or very good utility for a wall deck, right? Gives you hexproof, and you prevent all non-combat damage that may be dealt to other creatures you control, which means like they can't Blasphemous Act your board, which is pretty sweet. And then Shield Wall Sentinel, which lets you search up a creature with Defender, which lets you find like your Crashing Drawbridge more often, which can be really useful. How do you get your deck reviewed? Yes, you have to be a patron. It's like a raffle system. Patrons can like submit, and then I do 25 of these every month. Using every fiber of your strength not to jam Panharmonic on every deck. I know. It's 4 mana, do nothing. You just gotta believe. Cool deck. Ice Cream Swagger, by the way. I feel like I saw Arcades a lot when he first got printed, and then he fell off a cliff, and I haven't seen him in a while, and then looking at your deck, I was like, man, Tower Defense is so funny. So yeah, just a couple of simple changes. Alright, next is Warp World by Big Bucci. It's a Prosh deck, and it is playing cards like Over the Top and Warp World specifically. So this is every player shuffles all permanents they own into their library, which includes lands. Then you flip cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of permanents you shuffled in. Then you put all artifacts, creatures, and lands revealed this way into play. And then put all enchantments revealed... artifacts, creatures, and lands revealed. Then you put all enchantment cards revealed this way into play. I don't know why they separate out like that. And the rest go on the bottom. So this deck has, other than these 3 sorceries, no instants. And that's so that when you find your Warp World, you just shuffle as many things as you can and just like crap a bunch of things on the board, which is hilarious. Thoughts on the card Compost? You need to be built around it, otherwise it is bad. You'd add Radiant Performer. I feel like that's 2 win more. You don't need to copy it. You knew to MTG deck building, so it's harder for me. I mean, here's the thing is here's the beautiful thing about it. If you have more than 100 cards, when you cut the cards, set those aside and you playtest the deck, and then you can always put the cut cards in for some of the other cards that you think are doing bad. Your final version of the deck doesn't have to be the final version. You can keep evolving and changing it. Okay, so a couple of changes. Pawn Razor of Ulamog. I know it seems good in this deck, you make extra tokens, but it's for non-token, so it doesn't work with like Prosh, whereas Mahdi where Mahdi creates a treasure token for each creature that died this turn, doesn't say non-token. So when you play your Prosh with this guy out, you sack all your dudes, and you actually get to like make treasure tokens. Whereas yeah, he makes scions, but like it won't work off of Prosh. Timeless Witness. I think it's funny to get back Warp World if it gets countered, or just do it again. Pretty useful. This really slow. I don't think you need this card. Multiple people are playing this. I think this card's kind of bad. Ant Queen, really slow. I know it's like a mana outlet, but we don't need those. And then Impact Tremors. I was just kind of surprised this wasn't in here. With Prosh, Impact Tremors just wins the game sometimes. And off of a Warp World, Impact Tremors can actually win the game. What is the amount of decks I raffle from on average? Well, this is the first month I'm doing the raffle system. So I had like, was like 80 decks, and I did 25. But the way the raffle system works is when you're, so like Big Bucci's list got picked. Big Bucci's submission has been removed. Everyone else who didn't make it into the raffle still has their submissions there. So the next month, they can submit the same deck again or a different deck or whatever they want, and then they have 2 submissions. Or Tier 3 patrons can submit 2 submissions a month, so then they would have 4. So the longer you're a patron, the more likely it is that you will get picked. And then once you get picked, all your stuff gets cleared and you go back to square one. Tunnel Ingus? What is Tunnel Ingus? What? Oh, Ignis. My bad. The hell is Tunnel Ignis? Whenever land enters battlefield in a opponent's field, if that player had another land enter... What? No, I don't think we need Tunnel Ignis. It's kind of funny with a Warp World, but like... I think we need more permanents on the battlefield. A Jury Master of the View also works. The Patreon games raffle. The Patreon games are just kind of like whoever's available, kind of first come, first serve. Yeah, it's like I just kind of ping in the Discord when I have time. I don't have a regular streaming schedule yet. I'm kind of working on that, but it's sort of just whoever's around because time zones and stuff. It can be different. Cool deck, by the way, Bucci. I love this. Warp World is such a funny card. I kind of want to build a Warp World deck. Last one for... it's a kill. Tunnel Ignis kills with Warp World. If that player had another land under shield, deals 3 damage to that player. But it's not like a guaranteed kill, right? Like... If they're not built around Warp World, like the idea of the Warp World list... Alright, let's go back. The idea of the Warp World list is you have more permanents in play and more permanents in your deck. So when you Warp World, you're getting 12 things, where they're getting like 6 or whatever, right? Or you know, I'm making up these numbers. But ideally, you're getting more, right? So in theory, the Warp World already wins the game. You don't need this card to deal another 10, 15 damage, because we're just going to like... put like 30 cards into play, right? We're putting like a third of our deck onto the battlefield. We should be able to win by then. And I think instead of that, Impact Tremors also just works with the Prosh plan instead of needing it to work with Warp World. So I think Tunnel Ignis is just worse than Impact Tremors. Yes. Hello from Ian. Yes, once you can submit 2 a month, yeah, as a Tier 3 patron, and then once it gets picked, they all get cleared, and you go back to 0, and then you submit 2 the next month. Yeah. Alright. Wolverine one hit by I'll say incognito. So, Wolverine, if you haven't seen this commander yet, he just is a 3-mana 2/2, but doubles all damage he deals. And then, at the beginning of each end step, if he dealt damage to another creature, he gets a counter. And then you can pay green and 1 to regenerate him. Wild card Phage. Phage would be really funny as it's just a wild card. You lose the game. That's pretty good. Only the drunk wizard would suggest that. So here's the thing about Wolverine, is you want to get him out and start killing players, right? Simple as that, right? We're playing Commander's Plate. We're playing Shadow Spear. We're playing Power Fist. Yahoo, right? We're doing all that stuff. Fight spells are really good here, right? because when he deals damage at the beginning of end step, if he dealt damage, he gets a counter, and he doubles damage, so you can like fight something, and he gets bigger. It's all well and good. Here are the ads. Leyline Axe. I was a bit iffy with this card in a previous deck review stream, and then I was talking to the patron, and he was telling me how he felt about the card, and he was thinking that the card was super worth. So I'm going to take his advice here and suggest Leyline Axe. If it's in your opening hand, it is super good value. If it's not, it's a little awkward. 7 mana is a lot. I get that. But Double Strike and Trample on this card, of all things, is unbelievable amounts of damage, right? Warp World puts enchantments into play after the creatures are put into play. It's a separate instance. No. Warp World is 2 instances? That doesn't make any sense. Because doesn't they have... Because... we can't resolve anything until the full spell has happened, right? Let's find out. Anything that triggers during the resolution of this will be put on the stack until... Anything that triggers during the resolution of this will wait to be put on the stack until everything is put onto the battlefield and the resolution is complete. The player whose turn it is will put all the triggers and abilities on the stack in order. I'm like... Does this not specify that Impact Tremors would work? There's something here that says enchantment. Each player puts all enchantments revealed this way onto the battlefield, and aura put on this way can enchant an artifact, blah, 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 blah. If multiple players have auras put on the battlefield, this is just for auras. Each player puts... Okay. I'm pretty sure it works, right? Am I crazy? Reading the Warp World explains the Warp World. Each player puts all artifacts, creatures, and land revealed onto the battlefield. Then does the same for enchantment cards. I guess so. Okay. Here's my counter to that. What does Hornet Queen do? Makes 4 dudes. What does Chatterfang do? Make dudes when we trigger stuff. What does Avenger Zendikar do? Make dudes. What does... Man, we're not making as many tokens as I thought. And then Prosh, yeah? So the champions do not see that? It's because the aura is... It's so because the auras can be... Oh, that's why it works that way. Oh, for the auras. Oh. That makes sense. Okay. We're not making as many tokens as I liked. Do the enchantments ever... Do the enchantments... Yeah, ETB, the ETB creatures will work, yes. Because that, even though it's separate, yes, the ETBs will happen afterwards. It's still good with all the other multi-tokens, still good in the... Yeah, exactly. Could run... Molten Gatekeeper's already in here, I think. When enchantments are separate, it's always because of auras. That makes sense, yeah. Maybe Perforos... So Perforos... Yes. Perf would be a better addition. He's just $30, so I didn't want to suggest him. The original layers around auras were different because there weren't auras yet. Right, because it was just an enchant creature? Yeah. Would recognize the creatures re-entering. Agitate Instigator. Gate. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, maybe maybe this works better then for Warp World. Wait, is this card also like... It's actually pretty expensive too. Good call, Gecko Gamer. I didn't know he was 30. You know what? Perverse is really expensive. Yeah, that's why I didn't recommend it. When he counters an enchantment too? No, actually. So, Perforos is a creature in your deck, and so he's also an enchantment, of course, but he's a creature in your deck, in your hand, on the stack. His ability, turning himself not into a creature, only happens on the field. So you put him with the creatures, yes. Alright, Wheelmaster is yelling about Radiate. Okay, yes, Radiate is really funny. I don't think it's necessary for this deck. Chaos Warp. Yes, okay, so you can use Radiate and Chaos Warp to build your own Warp World for 2 cards. The problem is Radiate doesn't do anything else in the deck. There's not other like instances and sorceries to do stuff with. That's my problem with it. Gecko Gamer coming in clutch with the lizard. I know, right? So no, I like don't get me wrong. I love Radiate. I love Chaos Warp. I have done this in games before. It is very funny, but it just doesn't work too well on this list. I think there's not enough things to Radiate, and Chaos Warp is another instant. Which, you know, how many more instants do we want to add? I get what you're saying, Wheelmaster. It is really funny. It is very funny, but like, eh. Okay, I'm glad we cleared that up. Back to Wolverine real quick. I was talking about Leyline Axe. This card's really good. +1/+1, Double Strike, Trample. Huge on this commander. Maybe it's worth the 7 mana. I don't know. Test it out. I've had other patrons tell me this card is good, so I haven't tried it out myself, though. We're protecting our commander, so this is really good. It gives your commander hexproof, and then also +2/+2. This card's kind of good. Yeah, nothing more to say about that. Oh, the Vine Lasher also works for lands. That's true, but I think the other one works better with Prosh. And then Defiler of Vigor. Whenever you cast a green permanent, you put a counter on each creature you control. So when you cast Rancor, it puts a counter on each creature you control. What? Like, isn't this crazy? You play Hardened Scales? Uh-oh. Doom. Like, big on your whole thing, right? And then also, it makes things cost less. It's also a 6/6 with Trample that makes itself bigger. I feel like a lot of people just kind of, like, forgot about this card after it, like, came out or whatever. But this card's insane. And 100% is really good in this deck. Like, putting counters on your board for casting green permanents is, like, kind of where we want to be. Yeah. Here are my cuts. Ramp, ramp, ramp. Screw these cards. You have a 3-drop commander? What are you going to do with a 2-mana rock? So you can cast your commander on 3 and then Shadow Spear at the same time? Why didn't you just cast Shadow Spear the turn before? The boots, but, you know, a turn before. I think these are useless. Who cares about ramp? Let's just play more things that kill our opponents. You've died to Defiler a few times. I've died to Defiler. This card is really good. This card is crazy strong. Yeah, this is like an S tier mid-range threat. Even if your commander is like gone in this deck, like this will get big enough that you can put the Leyline Axe on it and win the game. So yeah, no, it's really good. This deck looks pretty sweet. It looks fun. You get to do a gajillion damage with Wolverine. Very funny. Yeah, cut this ramp. Honestly, cut all the ramp. Like, screw it. You know, just play more things that kill your opponent. I think that's like the way to go. Other than the Mana Dorks. The Mana Dorks are really good because you get your commander out of turn 2. Like, I get that. But I meant like the Arcane Signets. Okay, that was all 25 decks for January. I will be posting where you can upload deck lists on the Patreon, I don't know, today, I guess. And then after that, you can, you know, join, and the cutoff will be listed in that post. The cutoff point for, like, when these are due is usually the Monday of the last Monday of the month. So, yeah, I thank you all for tuning in. I know we're doing deck reviews, but something you were talking about reminds me of how I can think about looking at new brackets. Landfall will be, yes. I mean, hey, check out the podcast. I may have talked about that. Yeah, I gotta run. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. thank you to all of my patrons for submitting in decks. If you didn't get picked this month, you have better odds next month. So, yeah, thank everybody for coming by.